السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. وأسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى He grants us the best of tawfiq and success in the dunya and the akhirah. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He makes us of those who are guided and are able to guide others. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He protects us from all forms of fitan, that which is apparent and that which is hidden. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He increases us in beneficial knowledge. Today we are continuing on with another session of Umd al-Ahkam, and we have reached the chapter of Ar-Riba. And yesterday we had a little bit of an introduction as to what is riba, the types of riba, and the category of riba. Inshallah, we'll be looking at that a little bit more today. We'll also be looking at what is known as Ar-Rahn. The longest ayah in the Quran is connected to Ar-Rahn. It's not connected to Tawheed, it's not connected to Shirk, it's not connected to anything else you probably imagine, Jannah or Jahannam, or Tawheed, or Salah, or Siyam, or Zakat. It's connected to Ar-Rahn. And that teaches us now the importance of fulfilling each other's rights when we are trading, when we are exchanging, when we are borrowing, etc. So that is what we aim to cover today. Hopefully, if there's time, we can try our best to complete Islamic finance today, because what we've got is we've got Rahn. After that, we've got a couple of other masail that he brings in a number of hadith. Then we've got lost property, and then that is the end of year 2 from the 3-year course. And year 3 begins with bequeathment and inheritance, which I probably think we'll be doing next week, whether it's Monday or definitely, inshallah, on Tuesday. Now, I want to start off with this, and you probably had a glimpse of it earlier, because a couple of people were asking about car finances, not in the class, just generally asking. And I think it's something that we do need to discuss when it comes to trade. Although we've finished from trade, we are now looking at riba, but now obviously there is it's intertwined with one another, it is lapping with over one another. So what's the ruling on finance schemes, any kind of finance schemes, whether it's to buy a house or a car, or even if it's to buy a mobile phone, because mobile phones are very expensive nowadays, etc. Now, it's always changing. Now, this is something that I was looking at earlier before we started the class today, and it's actually still quite similar to how it was maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, right? It hasn't changed a lot. Maybe the fine print has, but the model of the trade and the structure of the trade is pretty much the same. Now, I've got Mercedes here for a particular reason, and there's a reason for it, because there was a brother who bought a Mercedes a number of years ago. And the first thing that struck me was what I'm going to show you now. So let's just pick this lovely green one, right? Here's the car. That's the value of the car, very expensive. If you want to look at the spec, you can go and do that later on, perhaps. But we are concerned about this bit here, which is the validity of it. Are you allowed to get yourself involved in such a car finance scheme with a model like this? What they're basically saying here is this is how much you would pay over 60 months. If you were to fluctuate it, then the price, as you can see here, changes. If you want to pay over 25 months, obviously we pay more. And if you want to pay over 60 months, which is 5 years, if I'm not mistaken, this is how much you would pay, right? But the first thing that I want to draw your attention to now, if we just go down here at the bottom, this is actually something that I learned in Saudi Arabia, okay? There was once a person that went into a showroom to buy a car, because the second-hand cars over there are probably not the most reliable, to be honest. So it might be a good idea is that if you've got the ability to buy a car, then go and buy one. I mean, especially people who go out there, they have good salaries because they have good contracts, etc. This is something that I learned there. So then what happens is that you pick a car, right? So you're interested in buying a car, you pick it out. What you would then do, here you have like a credit check sort of, I don't know how it works here. I've never been in the showroom here, but I think there's a credit checking sort of system. But over there, what would happen is once you've chosen your car, you go into a separate office, which is adjacent to the showroom, right? When you go into that office, you've got kiosks for all these different banks. So I was wondering, what are these banks doing here? Or why would you need to go to a bank? I'm trying to buy a car. If I'm paying in installments, what's the bank got to do with it? That's when I learned that what happens is that if you're buying a car in installments, what often happens, now it depends. Now, as we can see here, it's going to be a little bit different to what we will see with BMW, for example. What happens is that you borrow the money. So it's not that you're buying the car in installments, you are actually borrowing the money. So now it just becomes a mortgage, if you like. Now it becomes money for money. And we can clearly see that here evident in the sentence there, which is finance for your contract is an agreement, da 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 da. Finance finance offer applies to orders, credit approvals from da 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 da, and it is provided by Mercedes-Benz Financial Services UK Limited. It is not Mercedes-Benz, the people that you're buying the car from. So I want to buy this car that you can see here. I mean, it's even more clearer with this one, with BMW, I think. I think I saw it on this one, or if it was a different website. But you can clearly see here there's an APR. That's there. But here, look, financial services, BMW Group for Financial Services. So what's happening here? Same thing happened when I was shocked in Saudi Arabia, which is you're going into the showroom, you're picking the car that you like, then you're going into a different room somewhere, or you are making an agreement with Mercedes. It might even be a Mercedes leather-headed paper, and you're thinking, okay, I'm buying the car in installments. When in actual fact, what's happening is you're borrowing the money from the car company's loans company. Mercedes has got a loans company, BMW have a loans company, Vauxhall, all these companies will have a loans company. So what would happen is you're borrowing the money from their loans company, who would then who'd lend you the money, right? So this car's worth, let's say, £45,000. They're going to lend you that £45,000. You think they're going to do it for free? They're not going to do it for free. You're going to be paying back with interest, which is quite clear here with BMW, and they've set it at 7.9% fixed, right? So whatever you borrow, you're going to be paying back nearly 8% more. Straight away, what's the ruling? It's money for money. Therefore, it's riba. But let's say there is no money for money involved. Let's just say that, for argument's sake, there is no money for money involved, right? What are some of the other conditions that the scholars have put down when it comes to car finance and its conditions? I'm just going to put that like that. Right. There are a number of things that the scholars have put down that we have to look for. The first thing is the evident one that was just mentioned here, which is it can't be a loan. Can't be a loan for the amount that you are buying the car for. Okay, let's just put it easier. Let's just say you can't borrow the money. Okay. With interest. If you borrow the money without interest, no harm in that, inshallah. Okay. So that's the first condition. The second condition is that it cannot. Now, this is an issue where the scholars have differed. And I've seen a fatwa from Lajna Da'ima on this, and I've seen this as the view of our Sheikh Salih Shitri. It can't mix rent with buying, with trade. What does that mean? Remember we said yesterday, if you've got a contract that has multiple contracts within the contract, so you're buying and selling as well as renting, as well as borrowing at the same time, all of that's impermissible with the majority of the scholars. There is no real difference of opinion on that. And the reason why is because we don't know what type of trade we are engaging in. It has to be clear, otherwise it becomes ambiguous. Am I borrowing as well as buying at the same time? Am I buying with the condition to rent at the same time? All of that is not allowed because the Messenger of Allah said, La bay'an fil bay'ah. There can't be two trades in one. And this is what we are applying that rule here. And this is something that I've amended for myself here. And I've tried to bring down the deposit down to 0. If the deposit is at 0, then some of the scholars have said it is allowed. But I think the default, what was the default? I don't know. There was a default. What was there? Look, there's the default. The default is £7,904.80. So when you go into the showroom, you want to buy this car, they would recommend that you pay this much as a deposit. Now, some of the scholars have said that's fine, it's okay, because what happens now is once you've paid the deposit, what happens is you're paying a monthly amount of $336.92, but that's not installments to buy the car. You don't actually own the car yet. You are paying rent. You are actually leasing the car, and that's why they've got this excess here for mileage charge. And they are placing a condition that the annual mileage cannot exceed this much here. Therefore, you are renting, you are leasing, whatever you want to call it. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but it can't be mixed with trade. So if you're putting down a deposit and then you're moving on to another phase in the contract, which is now rental, this is impermissible with some of the scholars, and I'm just going to put that as a second condition. But if we were to change it to 0, so I'm going to have 0 cent or 0 deposit. I don't think you put 0, they're putting that 50p, but I mean, that's nothing, by the way. I mean, if it's just 40p, then inshallah, that's overlooked. Then that would then hopefully, inshallah, fulfill the condition that there could be, or there should be, no deposit. In this scenario now, what's happening is that you want to buy this car and the offer price is £45,000 and you can afford to pay 400, 500, 600 pounds a month. That's fine. What makes this permissible is you are buying the car. Remember, we said yesterday, you've got the contract. The contract is for rent. What's the rental period? That needs to be known. We've got it here, 60 months. Right. What happens when the 60 months expires? Then we've got a dotted line across the contract, because now we are entering into another phase of the contract, which is now the option to buy. What's the option to buy? 17 grand. So when your 60 months is over, when your 5 years is over, they will let you know and they'll say, listen, it's time either to give the car back because you've rented for that period and the rental period is over, or you exchange it for another car and then we review the tenancy, really, the rental agreement, right? Or you have the option to keep this car if you really like it that much, but you need to pay us the balloon payment, the purchase payment, the option to buy, and then that then makes it permissible. But if we are buying by paying the deposit, then renting and then buying, then that's not allowed, because you're moving from this to that and there's bay'ah and for bay'ah. But the reason why this would be allowed is because you've got the option. And remember, we said this yesterday, when you've got the option, this is a wa'd which is mulzim. Is that trade or not? With the majority, that's not trade. With the Maliki, it's trade. What's the wa'd mulzim? Meaning it's a promise. It's an option. Right? So I will sell you my house with the option that you take the furniture. With the Maliki, because I put that as the option, because I put that as a promise, is part of the deal now. Whereas the majority say it doesn't necessarily need to be part of the deal. When you come to the point of buying the house, it's a promise, it's your option. Do you want to take it or not? So that's the second condition, that there can't be a down payment, because what we're doing now is we're buying and then renting and then going back to buying again. The third condition, there can't be any late penalty fees. There can't be any late penalty fees. And this is what we will, inshallah, study today when it comes to riba. Why is late penalty fees haram? Now, the thing is with late penalty fees, you cannot escape late penalty fees anywhere. Even if it's a simple water bill or gas bill, there's a late penalty fee there. If you don't pay a certain period of time, we're then going to inform you and then it could increase, right? In those scenarios where there is a necessity and no option except have that kind of a contract, then the ulama have said this is balwa. I mean, there's no option in it. However, is there an balwa for me to have a 45 grand Mercedes? So now the scholars have said when it comes to purchasing car or something which is from the hajiyat or the tahsiniyat, not sure if we covered that in this class here. I don't think we did actually. What is a haji? What's a haji? What's a darura? What's a haji? What's from the tahsiniyat? Inshallah, we'll cover that at some point. Then they have said, listen, if it's got a late penalty fee, then it's not allowed. Why are late penalty fees haram? After the first month of me having this car, I owe them £468.66. If I am late in paying, there will be a penalty. I don't know what the penalty will be. Let's just say it's £50. I doubt it will be. It's Mercedes, but let's just say it's £50. That increase is now riba. If I owe you £1,000, I can't say, well, if you don't pay me by tomorrow, you're going to have to pay me £2,000. If you don't pay me by the day after, it's going to be £3,000. That is a late penalty fee. Now, even with this, there is a difference of opinion. Some of the scholars, let's be honest here, some of the scholars have said late penalty fees are allowed on the condition that it actually covers the admin fees or it covers the actual compensation for the loss, the financial loss that has afflicted the seller or the person that you owe money to. So because you're late in paying this person, the person still has to pay people to process the different things, and that might have a knock-on effect on their capital, etc. So then some of the scholars have said, well, the person is paying to cover the faults because of your actions. It is not connected to the loan. That's how some of the scholars have looked at it. But for me, it seems to be more prudent and what seems to be safer. And again, I think what seems to be closer to the dalil as well is that late penalty fees are not allowed. Right. Also from the conditions, now this also happens in Muslim countries, and I'm pretty sure it happens here as well, which is who is the owner? Who is the owner? We need to define who the owner is. So if we're saying it's a rental, no problem, that's clear. But if we don't know who the owner is, or we do know who the owner is, but we're going to put down conditions of repossession, then the scholars have said that's not allowed. Scholars have said that's not allowed. Okay, I've got a car. I've got this car here, the Mercedes. First month goes by, I've not paid. Second month goes by, I've not paid. Third month goes by, I've not paid. They've increased the amount that I owe as well. And I've not paid for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, wherever it might be. It comes to a point, and I don't know if that's here in the fine print somewhere. It probably would be, to be honest. But let's just say it's part of the contract that if I don't pay after a certain period of time, they will come and repossess the house, the car, the phone, whatever it might be. Now, if they are the owner and I'm supposed to be paying rental, that's fair enough. It's theirs, they're taking it back. And when we covered rental, we said rental requires a mutual fasakh. It has to have that agreement from both parties because this is a contract. But if the buyer or the seller or the renter and the rentee are having problems in fulfilling the contract, right? So I'm providing you with the house, but you're not giving me my rent. I'm providing you with in the work. I'm your employer, but you're not doing your job. I am selling you the walnuts that we had from yesterday, but you're not paying me the money. In this scenario, the seller or even the buyer can cancel, even if the other party is not happy. So I'm paying him, but I've not received any deliveries for the walnuts. I've paid him 3 installments. I've not received 1 kilo yet, right? In this scenario, he can say, right, I'm not paying any more, and I'm going to take it to the qadi to get my money back. Does he need approval from the seller in that? No, he doesn't. And this is the view of the majority, except the Hanabila have said, if he's your Muslim brother, وَإِنْ كَانَ ذُو أُسْرَةٍ فَنَظِرَةٌ إِلَى مَيْسَرَةٍ, it is wajib for you to find out what's going on with your Muslim brother. Akhi, I mean, you haven't paid, you've borrowed so much money from me, or you've bought this car from me and it's 468 every single month. You've not made one payment. It's been 6 months. Are you okay? This is what the Hanabila have said. It is wajib for you to check up on your brother. It is wajib for you to be patient with your brother until it gets to the point where you are now being afflicted, where you are now being affected by this delay. At that point, then, you don't need to wait anymore. So that's when it comes to the rental, etc. But repossession becomes really difficult now because this is my car. I have bought this Mercedes from you. Yes, I owe you money, but it's my car. Therefore, some of the scholars have said repossession is not allowed because you are not allowed to take something from another Muslim unless if you've got his permission to take it. Also, from the conditions of quiet fire, I mean, this is probably the most obvious one. I don't know why I put this in number one. There can't be any riba involved. And here we're talking about riba, al-fadl, which is where the person is borrowing money and they are, being told to pay back more in exchange. What else can we mention? This is what comes to mind. I think there are other conditions that the scholars have mentioned. But like I said, the brother the other day, I mean, there's a couple of people the other day who actually said, as long as it's fixed, as long as the riba percentage is fixed, then it's allowed. If it fluctuates and is variable, then it's not allowed. I personally haven't seen such a fatwa from the scholars, but that is riba. It doesn't matter whether it's fixed or not. Now, looking at these conditions, these are the 5 conditions that I've put down here. Perhaps there's more that I can't think of right now, but I think any one of these is sufficient, and any one of these can be found in any typical car finance plan. And we can see that here. I mean, I've changed the deposit down to 0. So let's just say that's there, right? But to be honest, besides that, Mercedes looks pretty good. And the reason why is because now, clearly, what you're doing is you're renting. It's as simple as that. Because you're paying 468.66 for a period of 5 years. This is your rental agreement, meaning you have to look after the car and you can't exceed 6,000 miles a year. If you do, then you have to pay 12p per mile. Very expensive, by the way. There is no riba involved. Look at the bottom of your screen. And once the 5 years is over, you got the option to buy. Once the 5 years is over, you don't want to buy, return the car, take a new plan, or, that's about it, really. So this one looks okay. I mean, I don't see anything alarming with this, except that when you are buying the car, it clearly says there at the bottom, which is that you're not buying the car from Mercedes, you're using the plan. So we definitely need to check with Mercedes what they mean by that, because if I'm buying the car and I'm paying 468 without a down payment, then I'm not actually borrowing any money. I'm not actually borrowing any money. However, what I think it means is that because you are paying on finance, the loans company is buying the car for you, right? Now you owe them the money, and this is what you are paying back to them on a monthly basis. This is what I think it means. And if that's the case, I mean, again, it could still be permissible if there's no riba involved, but I just can't see how riba would not be involved, especially with a big company like Mercedes. That's there, which again, like I said, it looks pretty good with that one because of the 0% APR. Again, I've not looked at the details because if I look at the details, we'll have better indication. But this is just for us to understand how it works and what the rulings will be, right? This is BMW. So this is a very nice, new, flashy, shiny car. A person wants to buy, and it costs £140,000. It's electric, etc. This is how much you will be paying on a monthly basis. This is the deposit that they expect from you, right? So there's no option to bring that down. Oh, there is, sorry. So if I bring that down to 0, let's see what happens. And it lets you do that, which is good. But you're going to be paying £2,000 roughly a month. There is a credit charge and there is an APR. And because of these reasons here, you can still see that there is an impermissibility in it. I'm just trying to think, because I'm pretty sure there are a number of conditions that I've missed out. These are the ones that I can remember off the top of my head right now. Yes or no?
What makes this particular one impermissible?
Well, there's an APR, there's riba involved, because so you'll be borrowing from the financial services of BMW, and you'll be paying back more with 8%.
But
yeah,
what if they simply gave you as a loan the total amount that you're supposed to
that's
pay?
that's what Mercedes is doing, I think, because they've got a 0% APR. So you borrow the money and you pay back exactly what you've borrowed. So you're paying that back, and you now have a rental program with the car's company, not the finance company, but the car company, the manufacturer. This for me looks probably okay. Again, like I've said, the details. I'm not trying to promote it. I don't think anyone will pay that much money anyway for a car, but I'm just saying here, by looking at the conditions, this one looks okay. But again, does it have late penalty fees? Does it have anything that's hidden? Would they repossess your car? Does it have anything hidden in it which would make it impermissible? But just on face value here, you're borrowing the money. Even if you're borrowing the money, there's a 0% APR. So you're borrowing 45 grand, well, not really 45 grand, because you take 45 grand away from the 17. So you're borrowing 20, what is it? 28, is it? If I'm not mistaken. Anyway, you're borrowing that much money, right? Without any APR, and you're paying back with 468.66. By the time you've got to 60 months, this is how much you would have left to pay to cover the 45. So what in effect you have done is you have rented for that period without any riba. And again, this is what I'm trying. Again, I can't say this enough, because I'm only giving this as an example. I'm not saying that it is permissible, but I'm pretty sure there'll be other things there that could be hidden, which would make it impermissible. But when it comes to BMW, if I can switch the screen, but it's not letting me do so for some reason. When it comes to BMW, there we are. When it comes to BMW, clearly from straight off the bat there, look, we've got a finance service. They've said everything comes through the finance service, and it's 8%. So you want to buy this car for 114, you are borrowing that from their finance company, and you'll be paying back with 8% more. Not to mention that there is a down payment, but alhamdulillah, I say alhamdulillah, but at least they've given you the option of having zero down payment, right? Because some car companies doesn't give you that option. They won't give you that option. They will say that you have to pay a down payment, but they're allowing you not to put one down or a deposit down. So then we haven't got the mixing of the contracts. But what we do have is the person is paying back with riba and the late penalty fees and probably the repossession.
In when I buy a mobile phone, there is APR, but you buy directly from the owner. Would that be allowed then? Because
That's very good, right? Okay, so what company is that? Let's go on to it.
They used to call it T-Mobile here in the Netherlands. They now call it Odido though.
What do you call it?
Odido.
Is it like that?
Let me
There we are. I got it. Right. So it's gonna be in Dutch, isn't it? Can we switch it to English?
not
There's
sure.
no language option.
But I think the same should be with T-Mobile, right? In the UK.
Yeah. I was just trying to see if we can get a direct example, but okay, let me just go to. So now the thing is with this, right? We've got one of two scenarios. Okay. I'm buying this phone from O2. Am I buying it from their loans company? Because they have loans companies as well. Am I buying it from the financial outfit or am I buying it from them directly? If you go down, you can see, the different questions that people might ask. I'm just trying to see if I can find it. Do I own my phone after the term has ended? All right. So that's a very important question. And the reason why that's important is because, like we said from the conditions earlier, who's the owner? So when you're paying in installments, etc., who's the owner? Are they the owner or are you the owner? But okay, let's just cut to the chase then here. There are two things here that could happen. Either they are loaning you the money with an APR. That's riba. They've got a separate loans company, O2, T-Mobile, Odido, whoever else it might be, AT&T in America. And what they will do is they will sell you the phone, except that they are selling you the money. They will buy the phone from you, from themselves, from their own manufacturer, and then you are paying back. So now the person thinks, oh, I'm just paying O2, I'm paying Vodafone, I'm paying these people. So when it comes with the bank statement, it looks like Vodafone, but in actual fact, you're paying Vodafone's finance company. Right. The other type of APR, which is now halal, is when the person owns the item, number one, sells you the item. Number two, these are the conditions now. So now you are now the owner. It's not mixed between ownership and rental or whatever else it might be. Number three, you are now either buying the item outright or installments. And this is known. And like we said, when it comes to a salam, the price must be known, the installments must be known, the time period must be known. Okay, so that's what I mean by known here. Yeah, everything is known. The term is known, the value is known, etc. Right. Here though, so these are okay, no late penalty fees. No condition to sell back. I don't think that actually occurs here in the West so much, but it does occur with certain companies where they will say, okay, if you don't want the item anymore, if you're not able to keep up with payments anymore, you will sell us the item back. And quite often they will sell it reduced rate so that they will obviously then profit themselves. But this second one is permissible. This second one is permissible. So say I've got iPhone 13, right? And the value for the iPhone 13 is, let's say, £1,000. And that's the cash price. I'm the owner. I'm the owner. But you say to me, Akhi, listen, I can't afford to pay you £1,000 in one go. How about I give you £100 every month? I'll say to you, okay, that's fine, but you need to pay me the installment price. How did you get to 1,200 from 1,000? We might then call that an APR. We might then call that an APR. If that's what we mean by APR, then that's permissible. Why? Because I am the owner. I am selling you the item. It's known. The period is known. I'm selling you in installments, etc., etc., etc. There are no late penalty fees. It's your item, right? And there is no condition to buy back. And this is actually the way that we can make a lot of things halal. I mean, banks won't do this, but instead of loaning you the money, why don't they just buy the house for you, right, as murahaba, like we said before, and then sell it to you at a higher rate? I'm sure a lot of people would do that, even if it's going to be 20% higher than its actual value. There are so many Muslims that would actually jump at that opportunity because it's not riba, because it's this one, it's a halal APR. I buy the house for you, 450. I say to you, Akhi, how long is it going to take for you to pay me back? You say 30 years. I say, Khalas, that's fine. But in 30 years' time, 150 is not going to be worth 150. So I'm going to buy the house. and I'm going to make money on it. So I'm going to sell it to you for 250. I've made £100,000 over 30 years. That's permissible because I'm not selling you money. I'm selling you the house. And I'm going to work it out using an APR. Obviously, they're not just going to pluck out a figure. They're going to have it based on trends and analytics. So then there will be an APR involved. And that is halal. Whilst it's in my mind, I mean, inshallah, we will be talking about this later. But the scholars have said that there are Islamic alternatives for everything that has been made haram. And we will be studying ar-rahan, inshallah, at some point. And the ulama have said, okay, if there are no late penalty fees, then what can we do? Meaning, how does the seller or the service provider protect themselves? And one of the ways they can do that is by having some kind of collateral. That's not riba now. That's not riba now. So you buy this phone from me, right? You're going to be paying me in £100 installments for a year. So I've just sold you something for £1,000, and the first installment is going to be in 30 days' time for £100. It just feels like I've just given you £1,000, and that's a lot of money for me. So I will then put down a condition that you give me some kind of a rahan. Give me something which is valuable that I can hold on to, which then becomes some kind of collateral just in case something happens. Just in case you're not able to keep up with payments, just in case you pass away, just anything, just any kind of, and it just gives me that security. So hopefully this clarifies and inshallah helps us understand this as well, which is when it comes to car finances, it is a little bit tricky. It is a little bit tricky. Ustad, the G and Chinese symbol on the right side of the URL is the button. Oh, I didn't see it because there's a thing there, but I think we got there in the end anyway. Right. Riba and sarf. We said yesterday, riba is when you are paying back more for borrowing. Yeah. So كل قرض يجري عليه منفعة فهو riba. This is the definition given by the ulama. Every single qard, every single loan or debt or borrowing that brings about a benefit for the one that loaned the item, then such is riba. Such is riba. So if I've lent you something in which I'm going to benefit from, then that is not allowed. And then we said that riba is of types. You got riba al-fadl and you got riba al-nasi'a. Fadl is when I'm asking back more. لا تأكل الربا أضعافا مضاعفة, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Imran. Do not take riba in multitude over multitude, meaning don't take riba and then, or give out a loan and then expect more in return. And then riba and nasi'a. And nasi'a is when we delay the handover. Then we said that in riba, there are commodities and items. The commodities are two. What is a currency and what is measured and stored. Right? These are the two categories, these are two areas, if you like. Right? And then we've got items within that. So an item of currency would be gold.